Welcome back to the channel everyone, and welcome to this video. So today I am going to be looking at the 1660 Ti tough gaming variant of that specific card, and yeah, I am planning to do some benchmarking, look at some gaming performance, and just basically see if it is a relevant card in 2022. Can it hold up against the performance hungry games of today? What's the power draw like? What's the the temperatures like? And just looking at whether I would recommend it for a modern setup in a budget gaming PC in 2022. Um, I recently bought this card from a local shop here in South Africa, and I've been using it for a while, playing some Warzone mainly with it, and it does pretty well, to be honest. So I'm just going to dive in further today, and just look more at those stats and more at those benchmarks, and like I said, just try and find out, should you look into buying this card, and is it basically good enough to be considered a budget gaming card in 2022. So personally, I paid around 6,000 Rand for it, which translates to more or less maybe around $400, which right now is maybe a bit steep because the prices have come down even further. And that's a part of the conversation. Should you even be looking at buying a graphics card this month, or should you wait a month or two until the prices come down even further, as is looking likely with the market as unstable as it was, coming back to some normality now. So, with all that said, let's get into it. Let's take a look at the 1660 Ti, and let's see how it does in my main PC. Let's get into it. Okay, so here we are in the testing for Warzone, and as you can see right now on the map overlay, we're getting about 75 to 80 FPS, depending on where we look. Let me just turn the volume down a little bit, something like that. So this is a pretty good result so far. Temperatures around 60, 50, 56, 57 degrees Celsius. Jumping out now, still staying around 80. As you can see, here's the card. It's the tough variant of the 1660 Ti, and it's paired with the Ryzen 7 1700 and 32 gigs of DDR4, 3200 megahertz RAM. So getting into a little bit of Warzone here, just checking those temperatures, checking that frame rate, and let's get some kills. So Warzone naturally is one of the games people like to play right now. It's very competitive, very fun game, and I play a little bit of it myself now and then, and I do enjoy it. Inside this building, getting around 80 to 90 FPS, quite good, not too bad. Out here like 75. So at 1080 HD gaming, this is actually doing quite well. Not a bad result so far. Coming in here, it seems to be staying around that 80 degrees Celsius kind of range. Not in too much action right now, so difficult to say exactly, but I'm trying to get closer to a little bit of action so that we can start seeing what it's like when there's a lot of. Oh, here we go. I'm not doing. That was terrible. And the gas got me. Very nice. Excuse my shooting there. That was horrible. So it dipped down to like 60, um, which is pretty good. GPU temperature seems to be staying around 57. It's been like that for most of the game, and the CPU is around 30, 31. The game seems to be using around 17 gigs of RAM, which is a lot, and it uses around 5,700 megabytes, so 5.7 gigs of GPU um, as well. And I'm not doing well. So this is pretty much the genesis, the maximum of what this graphics card is going to be able to handle. But it is running it quite well, and it is a decent experience, really not too bad. Definitely a lot of fun. What's that shooting at me? Ah, there we go. So, for Warzone, definitely a playable experience, getting around 60 to 90 FPS average, I would say, and yeah, definitely a lot of fun. Let's move on to something else now. Okay, getting into the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark over here, and yeah, it's doing pretty well so far. This is quite a demanding scene because of all the people around, so people usually take quite a lot of resources just because of the complex meshes, and same with trees. So this is doing quite well. It's at around like 70 to 75 right now, using around 11 gigs of RAM, around 5,800 megabytes of GPU. This is a 6 gig card, so that's right around the sweet spot. And the GPU temperature seems to be at like 55 degrees. CPU is pegged right around 30, 32, 33. I'm going to switch down the volume a little bit on this. Let's see how it does in this nature scene. Quite a beautiful scene to look at, very nice lighting. Scene like this is usually quite demanding as well because of all the up close nature assets, and these ones are definitely very detailed. But it's doing well. It's right around that 90 FPS mark. Uh, so really not bad. This is this is at HD 1K gaming. Um, so for this monitor, for instance, is a 144 hertz HD monitor. So for something like this, the 1660 Ti seems to be doing really well. At around 130 FPS right now, with this big, massive open world scene, and all of these LOD foliage assets. Performance will be dropping a bit now as we get into the villages and smoke effects and humans walking around. CPU's got to work a little bit harder as well. But again, very nice looking scene, and the GPU temperature seems to be pegged around that 60 degrees Celsius mark, which is, I would say, average for gaming. That's a desirable temperature, I'd say. Right around the 80 FPS mark right now, rising and falling a little bit now and then. And yeah, I think that was the Tomb Raider benchmark done. Um, let's look at the results. Okay, so the average FPS over here is, hopefully you can see that, it says 87, so it's right around 90. I can feel a little bit of heat coming off here, not much really. Um, and then, yeah, just looking at this graph, everything seems to be normal. Um, and the game seems to be running quite well on this hardware. So definitely can definitely handle Tomb Raider. Okay, let's move on to something else. All right, loading into the Far Cry New Dawn benchmark, and it would be interesting to see how this one goes. This is quite a short benchmark, so not going to be talking too much over it. So let's get into it. Let's see how it does. It's quite a demanding game. Right between Far Cry 5 and 6, I would say. Doing quite well, 80 FPS, but this is an indoor scene, so it's a lot easier to run. Getting up to that 100 mark. It's going to start dropping now, I think, as we get outside. Yeah, coming down to the 70s now, and here's that dip that we always seem to get. Explosions dropping it down even further, getting to the 50s now. Getting back up to the 85s. Yeah, seems to be pegged right around 80 for average. There we go, 74 average. If you look at the minimum there, that's 10. Seems to be right around what we always get with this benchmark. As that spike, that drop happens, and the average is 74, which is definitely quite good. If you drop down the settings a little bit, if you want to achieve that 144 target, drop down the settings maybe to medium textures, maybe some of the shadow stuff, and you should be getting close to that. Um, and yeah, not too bad. This benchmark seems a bit more difficult to handle than some others, but definitely a more than playable experience. Okay, let's move on to the last one. Okay, getting into our last benchmark here. Let's take a look at the Red Dead Redemption 2 benchmark. Um, this is also tuned to high settings at 180p HD, and right now running on Vulkan we are getting about 85 FPS. Let's see how it holds up. GPU temperature is going to start rising soon. There we go. This marshland scene getting about 100 FPS so far. Probably going to be falling a little bit. This game seems to be taking a lot less graphical and normal memory than some of the others. So the RAM is around 1200, which is 12 gigs, which that's a lot, but for a 32 gig system it's not bad, and the graphics memory is around 4000 megabytes, so right around 4 gigs there. GPU temperature rising, getting closer to that 60 mark, and the FPS is still above 100, which is kind of surprising, to be honest. Doing better than what I expected, but let's see how it does in the scenes that aren't so zoomed out, where there's a bit more action going on. Yeah, let's see if we can keep that above 100. So it's around 90 now for this Valentine, I think the town is called, scene. And still doing very well, but this is nighttime, so there's a lot less dynamic light going on. But yeah, beautiful to look at as well. I'm not sure how well the camera is going to pick it up, but very nice looking game. And yeah, doing very well performance wise, much better than what I would have expected. So this is a scene that's a lot like in game, right around 100 FPS at high settings. Very impressive, to be honest. So for some reason the 1660 Ti is doing better in Red Dead than what I would have thought. Outside, right in the action, in the big town, is it Saint Etienne or something? Right around 90 FPS, very very good result. Not really coming below 80. Very impressed. And yeah, again, this is running with Vulkan, and that also makes a difference compared to DirectX. But it also varies on, from card to card, from title to title. So there's a lot of variables there to think about. Not really dropping much below that 90 mark. Doing really well, even in these busy streets. Yeah, very surprising. Let's take some cover. Still right around 90 FPS. This game really seems to like the 1660 Ti. Wow, I am actually very impressed. I think that's most of the benchmark done. So yeah, this was a really good result. I don't remember if they show you a summary at the end, but I would venture that the average is above 80, which is again a really good result. And temperatures are looking good, memory is looking good. Really not bad. It is using almost 100% of the GPU, but still really good. And one thing that we didn't really speak about so far is the power draw, but it always seemed to be just above 100, like between 100 and 120. So that's pretty much what's to be expected. This card isn't overclocked. Um, so this is just vanilla stock right out of the box. And yeah, just going to use like right above 100 watts of power. Um, I think this card does recommend like a 550 watt power supply. I would guess. It uses, if you see over here, it uses just one 8-pin power connector, so you don't need the strongest power supply in the world to run this card. And because of its small size, it will actually work quite well in small form factor PCs as well, like mini ATX PCs. So very dynamic card, very good looking as well. So if you look at this, minimum 75, that's very good. Maximum 92, very good as well. Average 81, just under 82. So excellent result in Red Dead Redemption 2, and much better than I actually expected. Okay, that concludes the benchmarking. Let's talk about it. So the question is, should you think about buying one of these 1660 Ti's? Um, and to be honest, it really depends on what you're doing, like always with any graphics card. Um, if you are looking at gaming, specifically HD gaming, 1080p, high settings, usually maximum settings gaming, then I would say yes. It's a card that kind of exceeded my expectations. To be fair, because I used to have a 1650, and this far outperforms that. Um, you know, of course, in namesake, it's the next in line. It's the TI version of the next in line, but it's so much more than that. It does way better. And to be fair, the one that I had was a laptop version of it. But and that performed fine for HD as well, to be honest. But this does really well. This card is not too power hungry. It's not going to drive up the power bill too much. It's right around 100 to 120 watts of power when you don't overclock the card. Um, I'm sure you could undervolt it to be even less, and the performance in most titles is going to be very close to 100 FPS at medium to high settings for HD gaming. For a screen like this, you would get 144 hertz if you 144 FPS for 144 hertz screen if you just turn down the settings a little bit. So I would say it's probably worth it if you can get it for the right price, of course. Even if you look at it second hand, I don't really know what they go for second hand, probably around $200, something like that, but maybe 250. But a new one cost me around $400. I would say maybe it's a little bit expensive for 400. Maybe if you could get it for like 300 to 350 around there, I would say it's worth it. But in the end, the video is about the performance, and it definitely performs well. Like I said, you're going to get high, close to 100 frame rates, and you can fit it in small form factors. It's in the PC behind me, and you can see there it's quite a small thing. Well, this obviously this is just one variant of the card. This is the Asus Tough Gaming variant. But yeah, when it comes down to it, would I recommend the card? I would. If I could give it a rating, it would be probably like an 8 out of 10 for the price. It does what it says it will do, and it really drops below 70 FPS for most games. Even Warzone runs at about 80 FPS at maximum settings at HD. So I would definitely recommend the card. It's it's a good competitor, I think, for the price range. So that's it for the video. Hopefully you liked it. I'm still new at making videos, editing videos, so there will be some mistakes. The audio might be a bit weird, the video might be a bit weird, but yeah, hopefully you like the content, and hopefully you will choose to follow, subscribe is what I meant. Choose to subscribe. If you like the video, leave a like. If you don't like it, leave a dislike, so I can, so I can gauge whether or informative or entertaining, and whether people actually are interested and whether people like it. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Cheers.